What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. Today we're taking a look at the later rounds, trying to predict who could be this year's Sam LaPorta, a tight end drafted in the double-digit rounds that finishes as a top 3 tight end in points per game. I'm not just going to limit the search to only rookie tight ends, by the way, because it'd be a pretty short video. We'd basically only talk about Brock Bowers. So what are the sorts of things that we are looking for a breakout tight end, just to kind of help us narrow down this search? First criteria, going to seem pretty obvious, but it's obviously very important, and that is you need playing time. You can't exactly score fantasy points on the sidelines, and so we need to draft sleepers, under the assumption that they can be playing a lot on the field. They have a high ceiling for their snaps. You're going to need around 80 receptions, or maybe get really lucky in touchdowns to pull off a season like LaPorta had. And so if you're not a full-time player, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to do that. And again, I know it seems kind of obvious, but it's something you need to heavily consider for younger tight ends, especially. We can get overzealous at times, with players that we like, maybe predicting a little bit of a higher ceiling than they have in their young careers. If players are just not going to be on the field more than 60% of the time, they need to get super lucky to have a high-end season. Over the last 7 years, the average snap share rank of a top 3 tight end is 6th. The average route participation rank is 5.5. No tight end over the last 7 years has finished top 3 in points per game on less than a 76% snap share, and only Gronk in 2021 finished top 3 on less than a 73% route participation. So basically, unless you're Rob Gronkowski, you better be top 10 in route share across all tight ends in the league if you want to finish top 3 in scoring. So that needs to be in the back of our mind. Can the players that we're drafting this late actually finish top 10 in route share among tight ends? We also need them to be on a good offense. Over the last 7 years, if we look at the tight end 1 in points per game, their offense has ranked 4.5 in points per game, so around 4th or 5th best offense in the league. The tight end 2 has ranked 9.1. Tight end 3 has been 14.4. So you can see, how offenses can get a little bit worse as, tight end scoring goes down. But no top 3 tight end came on a team that was ranked worse than 22nd in points per game. So we basically just need to eliminate any team that you think is going to finish bottom 10 in scoring. You probably just shouldn't draft a tight end from that team because, again, no tight end in the last 7 years has finished in the top 3 in half PPR points per game and been in a bottom 10 offense in overall points per game. So we have to avoid the bad offenses. And then finally, you need them to be a good athlete. Zach Ertz was the worst athlete to finish top 3 in scoring in half PPR points per game over the last 7 years, and he was still a top 50% athlete. So if you are not a top 50% athlete, you are just probably not going to get it done and finish the top 3 tight end. So we for sure need top 50% athleticism, but ideally we're looking for top 10%. 67% of the top 3 tight ends in the last 7 years have ranked inside the top 10% in athleticism score. So knowing all of this, we need the routes, we need the offense, and we need athleticism. Who makes the cut? Who is also being drafted in double-digit rounds? Because obviously, the best picks at tight ends are hitting on all these 3, but we know that, and so they're going to cost you a lot more. The value in Sam LaPorta last season was because in many leagues he was going in 10, 11, 12, that general range in redraft. He was going in that range, and then he finished, depending on the format, 1st or 2nd in points per game. So that's a huge edge as opposed to taking someone in round 3 like LaPorta this season. If LaPorta this season, as you did last year, it's not going to be nearly as valuable because you have to take him in round 3. So given that, only looking at players in a double-digit round ADP, going in order of ADP for the list right now, we have TJ Hockenson, Cole Kmet, Luke Musgrave, and then by extension Tucker Kraft later on in drafts, Tyler Conklin, Chig Okonkwo, Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith, and Mike Gesicki. Everyone I just listed has at least a chance of hitting on all 3, we should understand that there really aren't any that are a lock to hit on all three because they would be going in the single digit round. So that's the list. Here's how I would rank them, and then just kind of like a quick breakdown on them from most likely to have a top 3 season points per game to least likely among that list, at least in my opinion. First up, TJ Hockenson. He was 3rd in points per game last year. So right off the bat, we know like he's obviously capable of it. He, of course, had the knee injury, had the torn ACL last season, has surgery this offseason to recover from that. We're starting up camps. I believe it came out like a few seconds ago that he will be put on the like the injury list. He's not going to start camp healthy. We knew he was never going to start camp healthy. The odds are, in my opinion right now, which, let's be honest, shouldn't matter to you too much. Just given the things that I have read about his recovery, seems pretty unlikely he starts the season healthy, but he's going to play the season, right? He's maybe going to miss the first month or so, maybe is slowly integrated after that. But when we're talking about points per game, we're talking about someone who last season was 3rd. We've already seen it from him. I think it's pretty obvious he should be first on this list. He is a top 11% athlete, so also that helps coming off of an injury like this. Whenever we see recoveries from ACL injuries, it's are you younger than 26 or are you a freak athlete? Hockenson is a very high-end athlete, so we should expect him to recover from the injury. Pretty much no chance the Vikings are a bottom 10 offense. Once healthy, he will have an elite snap share. So again, I think it's pretty obvious that he's the top one on this list. It's just that you don't know, right? He's going a little bit later in the double-digit rounds because we don't know. If it did come out, he's like not going to start the season on the pup. He's going to, play in week 1. You're not going to get him in double-digit rounds. So on something like Underdog with the ambiguity right now, it is probably a sharp time to draft him. But if he's going to go this late, he obviously, has the upside to be top 3. After Hockenson, I think the next most likely is Luke Musgrave or Tyler Kraft. Luke would be first. He would be the most likely, but everything you can say about Luke, you can honestly say about Tucker Kraft. So I still maintain they shouldn't be going as far apart. At least on Underdog right now, I think the ADPs are around like 143, 144 for Musgrave, and then Tucker Kraft goes closer to like 210. Again, I think that should be squeezed a little bit. But for those of you in redraft leagues, I mean, typically your last quarterback is going to be in the Luke Musgrave range anyway. So there actually isn't a gap because it's basically like your last pick for both of them. So again, you'd still lean Luke Musgrave if you're in a redraft league. But both of them are plus athletes. Both of them are on the same team, right? The same great Packers offense. They're not going to be a bottom 10 offense. They're both probably going to fall short in snap share and route share. But we include them both because if one of them were to get injured, we're going to see a significant boost in playing time. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, if one of them gets hurt, you'll see the other one playing 95% of snaps. They will be like top 5 in route share. And then when you think about that, you're like, oh, okay. So one injury to either one of these two makes the other one top 5 in route share on an elite offense and an above average athlete. We're sitting here being like, oh, all of a sudden we have someone who, if that had happened, before the season started, they'd be a single digit round pick, but you can get both of them a little bit later. So it adds the upside there. I probably in a redraft league would want to like double dip. Like basically, honestly, for everyone else on this list, besides even Hockenson, really, I would actually say everyone on this list in a redraft league, you probably want to be double dipping. You probably don't want to take either one of them solo, but give yourself 2 shots, right? See what happens in week 1. If you think that like maybe someone later in this list, you think they're going to break out, but you watch the snap share and it's like 50% and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, that's just is not going to cut it, right? You can cut those players much more easily for the players who kind of break out early in the season. And I would say definitely with these two, it's like you kind of know the snap share is going to be kind of lower. So maybe make this one the one you don't panic on and cut them. It really is the upside here comes from an injury. Because like you think about the Packers offense, right? They have 4 great wide receivers, a 5th wide receiver they want to get onto the field. They really like both of these tight ends. Like they love their running backs. They're going to utilize both in the receiving game. Like they just have so many people that I just don't see it happening without an injury. But if there's an injury and they get one of these guys playing 95% of the snaps, we could definitely have a lot of upside this season for either one of them. After those two, I'd say it's Noah Fant. He is the 12th most athletic tight end of all time, but his downfall has been like a combination of mediocre offenses and then just like a lack of playing time. And we've kind of overhyped him at times, especially like, when you moved to Seattle, we were like, okay, they traded for him. We know he's athletic. This team's not going to be terrible, and he's going to play a ton. But then we see like Disley and Hockenson getting all these snaps, and we're like, what the heck, right? They had 56 targets last season. Both of them are gone, though. Seattle actually has the 6th most tight end, vacated targets for tight end of any team. So there's a lot of opportunity. They've only filled it with Pharaoh Brown, AJ Barner, and Brady Russell. So it's another season where we're like, it should be Noah Fant, right? He should be getting a lot of snaps. Will he? They'll probably pull something to where it's annoyingly low, but they should be playing faster. They should be throwing the ball more. He should get more snaps. He's super athletic. They're not going to be bottom 10. So everything is, kind of looking in his favor. But again, last season, 57%, last 2 seasons, 57%, 56% of dropbacks he was running a route on. That's not enough. You can't be a top 3 tight end if it's that low. So we'll see probably pretty early in the season. If he goes out there in week 1 and it's 58%, we're going to be like, great, another season of a bust from Noah Fant. But if he goes out there and he has 85% of snaps he's running a route on, we're going to be like, let's go. It's wheels up for Noah Fant. But something we just don't know right now, but he has the upside to have that ceiling. Next up, Tyler Conklin. Conklin is a top 25% athlete. The Jets are probably not going to be a bottom 10 offense as long as Rodgers stays healthy. And the snaps shouldn't be too bad. He was 18th in both snap and route share last season. Ran a route on 78% of dropbacks, so that's not bad at all. A hair lower than you would want, but at 78%, I mean, if he bumps it up like 7%, he's already into the range where we're really looking at for breakout tight end. The path is really just earning Aaron Rodgers' trust. Rodgers is a player and a quarterback that he will hyper focus on the players he trusts. If he only goes out there and trusts 3 players in offense, 3 players are getting the ball, right? He's just not going to throw. He won't even look at you if he doesn't trust you. So if Conklin can get on the same page, earn the trust, which it seems like he has, but we still have a whole camp to go through this summer. But if that happens, he get a very strong season. He honestly had a better season last year than most will remember. He was 11th among tight ends with 61 receptions, 13th with 621 yards. He just scored 0 touchdowns, right? The next most unlucky tight end in terms of touchdowns was Jonnu Smith, who didn't score on 35 receptions. But Conklin didn't score on 61 receptions. You'd have thought he'd score at least 1 touchdown. You give him a measly 3 touchdowns. He jumps from 24th in points per game to 16th, tied with Kyle Pitts. So again, that's on the Jets last year too. They're going to score more. They're going to be more efficient. So the opportunity is there. It's just, can he earn Aaron Rodgers' trust? And we kind of just don't know the answer to that right now. After Conklin, I'd say next most likely is Cole Kmet. Been getting better, right? Last 3 years, 25th, 14th, up to 8th in points per game last season. He's a top 10% athlete all time for tight ends. Bears are not going to be a bottom 10 offense. Last season, snap share was 10th among tight ends. Route share was 15th, so right in a really good range. Everything's going up. You're like, let's go, right? The issue is this season, right? They draft Rome Odunze, an incredible wide receiver. They acquire Keenan Allen, an incredible wide receiver. They already have DJ Moore, an incredible wide receiver, right? They have 3 rock solid wide receivers. They signed DeAndre Swift to a larger than expected contract. There's a lot of people on offense now. He's going to have to get lucky with touchdowns. He's going to need an injury to a wide receiver. But, who knows? Maybe defenses really focus on the wide receivers. They're like, we can't let these guys beat us. And it does lead to a season where he gets, 10 touchdowns, right? He gets lucky with 10 touchdowns, and that makes him top 3. Or maybe Caleb Williams is just awesome. Who knows? There are outs here besides an injury. But on average, I would say, given all the talent they have at wide receiver, that target share is dropping from what we've seen. And so it's more likely he finishes a back end 1, a high end 2. But again, there are paths. Does he get lucky with touchdowns? Does Caleb Williams turn out to be really good? Probably the easiest path, but then injury to wide receiver. There are outs here to where he can have a really strong season. After Kmet, I'd say it is Jonnu Smith, top 17% athlete all time at tight end. Dolphins, obviously a very, very good offense. Big question mark is the snaps. If Odell and Malik Washington both end up busting at wide receiver 3, they give both a shot, both stink, and they can't, go to either one of them. That's a world where I could see Jonnu getting a lot more usage and finishing top 3. I think I have too much faith in Malik Washington. I do really think he's a very quality player. He can have a role on this offense. I don't expect him to bust. So I still think Jonnu is a really, really good pick on Underdog. Less so, I think, personally, in a redraft league. I stand behind saying he'll be the most efficient tight end in the league this season. I think when they use him, it's going to be like an insanely high catch percentage for a really high yards per reception. Like, I just think that's going to be awesome. It's just that I think they're probably only going to go to him like 3 or 4 times a game. So on Underdog, you can capitalize on that because there will be games where he breaks off a few really long plays. There'll be games, I think, where he has the upside to score multiple touchdowns, and it's like you want to capitalize on that. In a redraft league, you'll be going in there being like, okay, I'm expecting 3 or 4 targets. Am I really competing with the teams that have LaPorta, Kelsey, Andrews, Kincaid, McBride, Pitts, Kittle? No. Like, you're going to really be against those guys, like really be like worse than them in projection. But who knows? Like, again, if they can't get that wide receiver 3 role going and he is highly efficient, maybe they do try and go, you know what, 5 or 6 looks to him. And maybe he's catching 4 or 5 of them every week for an insanely high yards per reception, and he's got some touchdowns mixed in. All of a sudden, we get a little bit of touchdown luck, and we're cooking, right, for Jonnu Smith. So could happen. I think he deserves to be kind of like lower on this list, though. Again, good ADP and Underdog. In redraft, it's like I kind of said before, when you're at the Musgrave range, you're already in your last pick for tight end. So it's like the same. You don't get that extra discount that like Underdog being 18 rounds with no defense and kicker. Well, if you're in a 15-round redraft league with defense and kicker, round 13 is the last time you're taking a skill player. So there's no difference between round 13 and round 18. So again, better in Underdog, not as much in redraft. After Jonnu, I would say next most likely to break out is Chig Okonkwo, top 38% athlete. So that's a hit. Titans are not going to be amazing, but I'd be a little surprised if they're bottom 10. I think they should be around league average as an offense. Some chance that the snaps increase, but I feel like you kind of hear the tone maybe there, like just a little bit less confidence, again, moving down the list in order of likelihood, in my opinion. Like top 38% is not top 10. Titans are not going to be top 10. They're going to be around average. We're hoping the snaps go up. It's like we're kind of hoping for everything with Chig. But I like him. I do like him as a player, and they are going to throw the ball more. They're going to play faster than people think. I think the saving grace for Chig is that like he is by far their best pass-catching tight end, and so given that they're going to throw it so much, maybe they do look at it and they're like, you know what? How are teams going to defend us, right? Because it is a thing. Like if you do look at this team, they have a very talented passing attack, and if Will Levis can really like get going in year 2, you've got 2 great pass-catching running backs. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, you've got Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd's a quality number 3, Treylon Burks maybe can excel in a number 4 role, right? Get some limited plays there. But then when you throw Chig in there, you're like, okay, like we have a lot of different weapons. Maybe they can get going, and then maybe Chig can do something. But I don't know. The out's a little bit rough for me to see. Like it's not like we're expecting Will Levis to be some insane quarterback, and so it would have to be him taking a big step up and then probably some injuries plus touchdown luck. So not as many outs, but he makes the list, so we have to talk about him. And then finally, last person to make the list is Mike Gesicki. Of course, being on the Bengals now, right? That's obviously a very good offense. He is the 4th most athletic tight end in NFL history, so that is a big plus. Big issue is snap share. Plus the fact that, of course, they have Jamar Chase, they have T. Higgins, they have Jermaine Burton, who I think can be a great wide receiver 3. Last season, we figured Gesicki would have a high snap share, right? Since the Pats had basically no talent at wide receiver. They had Demario Douglas kind of break out, but like they needed skill players. They needed people who could catch the football. He played less than half the snaps. He was like 29th in route share among tight ends. He only has 606 receiving yards combined over the last 2 seasons. Hasn't missed a game. He's played all 34 games. Like, personally, I would only take Mike Gesicki on Underdog, and I'd be stacking with Burrow 100% of the time. So if you take Burrow and you've got like a Chase, Higgins, Burrow stack going on, or maybe you like missed out on those 2 and you want to go Burton and Mike Gesicki, that's where I would do it. In a redraft league, it's such a long shot for Mike Gesicki to really do anything if he, surprised us, right? They go into camp and they're like, no, we like him, right? Throw the other tight ends aside. You're going to go out there and you're going to play 85% of the snaps. That's the out. Because also, there are other paths like Chig we were talking about before. He needs the snaps to go up. He needs the quarterback play to be better. Like, he needs a lot of things. At least with Gesicki, like, again, I put him last on this list because I actually don't think it's going to happen. But if it did happen that he went out there 85% of routes, he's running a route, He's got a great quarterback on a great team, and he's athletic. So if he actually gets the snaps, he's probably going to produce really well in fantasy. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if you do, you should definitely be going after him in drafts because he's going at like pick 205 on Underdog. So he's free in redraft and he's effectively free Underdog. So just to wrap everything up, among these tight ends that I think are being drafted in the double-digit rounds that have a path to a breakout season, the ones I'd go after heavily in redraft leagues are Hockenson, Noah Fant, both tight ends if you want to take them with your last pick, Tyler Conklin and Kmet. That's kind of where I draw the line there. And I would say it'd be ideal in this range to be double dipping on all of these guys. Take 2 shots on your 2 favorite. Then for those of you on Underdog, I would add in Jonnu Smith, Chig Okonkwo, and Gesicki, and I would probably always try and do it as part of a stack if you already have the quarterback. And then one final name, Taysom Hill is like an honorable mention for those of you who play in leagues where he's tight end eligible. A lot of leagues are moving towards making him only a quarterback. I don't know what league you play in. I don't know if you can change that in your league, but if you're allowed to play him at tight end, I would have him ranked right after Dallas Goedert, and he would be a very strong pick. I do actually think he's going to have a strong role this season on the ground, through the air, in the red zone. They'll have him throw it at times. I think he's actually going to be way more involved than people think. It could be even more involved than we've seen. So again, if you can play him at tight end, if you can't, you can only play him at quarterback, completely cross him off. Don't worry about it. So those of you who watched this far, be sure to hit the like button. You liked it somewhat, and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. These videos are always free, so why not just make sure you don't miss any of them? Hit subscribe, click the bell icon next to it so it always pops up in your feed. If you want to see my exact rankings for all these players along with all other players, you can see that on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I'll be back tomorrow with another video, but that, my friends, will be the end of this one, and thanks for watching.